So thankfully Paradox nerfed this since the release of Domination, aka the reason why you see release Domination in the title. You'll be missing out on the Kings of Kings content naturally, but since you are playing as England, I doubt that is going to be much of a concern for your campaign. If you play on current patch, the win button has been replaced. If you do want to experience this yourself, go to EU4 in your Steam library, select Properties, select Betas, and go to the previous version where this is enabled. Do be warned though, it's a win button, so it's not exactly fun. Before you do, however, let me take you on a journey. Great Britain. The country famous for losing like 100 development to France at the start of the game, AFKing on an island, roaching low-tech natives instead of fighting honorably in Europe, and still somehow winning every single campaign, while running around with enough trade income to put Warren Buffett to shame. Now, a part of this strategy has always involved being practically untouchable, which meant for once actually investing in a navy. But in the realm of EU4, England isn't the only naval boy on the block. If we go east, we see Denmark rolling a +1 naval leader shock, 15% morale of navies, 50% naval force limit, and a very impressive and devastating 15% global naval engagement rate. Down south from England, Spain runs around with 10% heavy ship combat ability, 25% naval force limit, and unlike Denmark, an actual economy able to afford heavy ships. Further afield, we see Koreans running around with their turtle ships, with 5% morale of navies, 10% global ship durability, and even more from their unique turtle ships, as well as temporary missions. Malacca is also a strong naval contender, with access to 33% naval force limit, bolstered by the Malaccan access to the +1 combat bonus of owned coasts. England, of course, also has this, but Malacca is able to contest it there. Japan, however, clearly stands out as the beast to fear from the east, as the Japanese ideas themselves already have 10% ship durability, but are also able to gain some insane end-of-the-game naval buffs, such as 20% more ship cannons until the end of the game, which pretty much equates to just increasing their base damage by 20%, and other fun naval buffs like 10% ship durability are able to pop temporarily from their missions. Now there are others, I just mentioned some naval countries here. And to be clear, of course GB has its own generic but powerful modifiers, like 20% morale navies, 15% heavy ship combat ability, a naval leader maneuver pip, some yearly navy tradition, and a combat bonus of owned coasts. All very strong powerful things in their own right, let's be clear here. Not a completely mindless free win button. That would not be enough to justify making a video where you have to go down a couple versions. So what is this last hidden powerful modifier that GB has in their missions that is so completely and utterly broken that it puts everyone else's navy to shame? What lets them win every naval battle with minimal effort? To put it simply, why does Britannia rule the waves? So here let's consult the dev diary talking about the release of the GB mission tree for the Domination update. It outlines this so casually, so innocent. And here it is. Doesn't it look innocent? Just gives you access to 10% sailor recovery speed and these unique little man-of-war ships. What is the effect of these man-of-war ships? Oh. Read it and attempt to understand, no, comprehend what this actually means. And for the 10 to 11% of my audience who watches me with auto-translating subtitles, first of all, hello. I hope you've been doing fine. But second, I feel like understand and comprehend may have been translated into the same word in your local language. So if you happen to be one of those 10 to 11% of my audience who watches me with subtitles that are auto-translated, or you just happen to fail English, comprehension is like understanding, but better. Now, where was I? Oh, yes, Navy, boat, England. -1 naval engagement. What? So why does this just win? Well, what is naval engagement, first of all? It's basically how many boats can go to battle. Its base value at Diplomatic Tech 2 is 25, and it goes towards a total of 75 base by Tech 24. Light ships, galleys, and transports take up 1, and heavy ships take up 3. So far so good, and everything naval battle-wise is kind of balanced around those things being the same. For example, Denmark's previously mentioned 15% global naval engagement means that when their dip tech is say 12, so the engagement width is a cumulative value of 50, other nations are able to fit 50 ships into the battle. But Denmark fits 50 plus 15%, which means they have 57.5% ships in the battle, which rounds down to 57. So they're able to squeeze in 2 more heavy ships, shooting cannons, or 7 more galleys into the battle. So basically 15% more boats into each battle. That is a boat that is taking damage in the battle. That is a boat that is dealing damage to the opponent. That is a boat that has morale, which contributes to the morale of the overall fleet. This is also why maneuver is crucial on naval leaders, as not only does it increase the trade power your light ships gain by 10% per point of naval maneuver, but you're also able to gain 10% engagement width per admiral maneuver point. which means with a 6 maneuver admiral, you're getting 60% more boats into the battle compared to an enemy which isn't doing that. Unfortunately, unlike you going for the naval maneuver pips, your enemies are able to do that too. Oh, and also you can get 10% naval engagement from naval hegemony, but if you've claimed that, then it's probably a touch overkill at this point. So far so good, right? We've understood how important naval engagement is for boats. It lets you fight with more boats in the battle. Well, that does mean that with all else being equal, England with a fleet of these man-of-war ships fits 50% more heavy ships into the battle, because their engagement width has gone from 3 to 2. That's it. For every 50 enemy heavy ships, England fits in 75, all else being equal. That means that not only in the battle is England dealing a base 50% more damage, since they have 50% more ships in the battle firing cannons, the damage the enemy deals is distributed between 50% more ships. So in essence, you have 50% fire and shock damage, but boat, and 50% fire and shock damage received, but boat. If only we could compare this to something equally overpowered that occurs in land battle. Oh wait, we can! See, there's something called the Ming. Well, to be clear, not just the Ming. Anyone who takes the Mandate of Heaven. Because the Mandate of Heaven comes with some interesting drawbacks if it happens to get low. See, if your Mandate of Heaven drops to 0, so any mandate below 0, below 50, so as it scales to 0, you're going to get a very pleasant plus 50% fire and shock damage received. Which in essence means the enemy gets plus 50% fire damage and plus 50% shock damage. Wonderful, right? Yes, that means the entire Ming army pretty much melts immediately when they have 0 mandate. However, that's not a fair comparison, because while your troops are taking 50% fire and shock damage, well, more of it, they're not dealing 50% less fire and shock damage. To make this equal, imagine taking a 0 mandate Ming that has plus 50% fire damage and shock damage received, and then putting it up against an Oirat horde that is fighting this Ming with minus 50 fire and shock damage received. They have minus 50 fire and shock damage received in their godly cavalry, and they're charging into a 0 mandate Ming. I mean, at this point, is it really a battle? It's not really a battle, it's more of an abortion. You can see where this is going. See, Spain can build an armada so large they can deforestate their entire country, and for the record, they actually did this during the big armada thing. Anyway, historical tangent aside. They can build an armada so large they can deforestate their entire country's oak trees. Denmark can build a navy to make their Viking ancestors proud. The powers of the East can mobilize huge, excellent navies, delivering insane amounts of ship durability and firepower to the table. And yet, here in Britain, the man-of-war ships will protect our waters. We will not lose to any invaders from Ireland to Cathay, for here, one truth is self-evident. That Britannia rules the waves. God save the King, and may God help us all.